All right, it is now 10 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Zinzer, and I am one of the 9-10 counselors at Coleridge High School in Newcastle, and I will be your moderator today. I would like you to welcome. We have two attendees here today. We have Angie, who is the Director of Admissions from Dickinson College in Pennsylvania. And then we also have Scott from the University of San Diego. And the workshop today is called The Road Ahead, College for 9th and 10th graders. And on behalf of the Western Slope Virtual Workshops College Fair, we want to welcome you. A little bit about the format. So we will have a 30-minute session with our attendees here. And then after that, we will have a 15-minute question and answer session. So if there isn't any questions, I will turn it over to our two guests and enjoy the session.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Scott, I'm going to share my screen. Do you want to offer anything else by way of introduction before we get started?
Sure. I'd like to go and share a little bit about myself. So my name is Scott Yonner. I'm one of the admission counselors at the University of San Diego. Growing up, I was a first-generation student, which means that my parents did not have a bachelor's degree. Well, actually, I was raised in a single-parent household. So for me, thinking about college growing up was never really something discussed in our household. Unlike schools today, where they have AVID and they have other opportunities for students to really be able to engage and really learn about the college process, even with the road ahead, which we're going to be speaking about today. I didn't have those options growing up. So for me, college was something I never really thought of. I went to community college because it's what my friends did, but I wasn't prepared emotionally, mentally for what college was about. So I ended up going about a year and going full-time, and went into the Navy for about 6.5 years, where I met my wife and we had a family. And as I got out of the military, I realized the value of a college education. And so for me, that was sort of the transition point, realizing that for me to really provide for my family the way that I really want to be able to have the options and the doors to open that I was looking to go into as far as when it comes to jobs, I realized that I was going to have to go back later, or go back to be able to complete my bachelor's degree, which I was able to do, working full time and trying to raise 2 kids at the same time. So a lot different than having that option going in. So I'm really excited about this class today, because I really think you guys are in a great place to be able to really think about what your future is going to look like. And hopefully today, Angie and I can be able to help give you some just sort of vision of what it to look like, things you can do to really set yourself apart to be able to be prepared once you get there. So that's a little bit about myself, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity to be able to connect with you all today.
Thank you. I will give a little bit more of my story, which is that I have just gone through the college search process with 3 children. I have daughters who are in first year, junior year, and senior year of college. My senior is doing a study abroad year, so we've just navigated getting her out of the country. Something that she dreamt about since she was in middle school. Yeah, going through this process has been a real eye-opener. I've spent over 30 years doing college admissions work, and I thought I knew everything about this process. And then going through it in my own household with my own family members was like, took like everything that I thought I knew and kind of turned it on its ear. And the thing that I learned is that this process really has to be about the individual student, right? I saw 3 children through college searches across 4 years. They were completely different searches. And some of that was pre-pandemic and during the pandemic and the impacts of that whole situation and some restrictions. But it's also like, it's kind of always true. It's just always a different process. And it really needs to be a process that's focused on the individual students. So I imagine we have a mix of students, maybe parents and school counselors in this group. But if I can start, let's see here, I'll move to the next screen, this one. It is to share that message with you, that this process is at its core all about the student, the individual student. We're going to talk coming up about some of the self-reflection that really can and should drive this process for you, so that you're finding the right opportunities for you and for what you want and what you aspire to. Not, what somebody else thinks is the best school. The best is going to be the place that's the right fit for you and for what you want to do and what you want to achieve. And I want to throw out one other thought before we move into that conversation about that self-reflection. And that is that, you're in 9th, 10th grade now. This is going to evolve. Your ideas about what you want, some of it will stay the same. You'll continue to be interested in some of the same things, but you'll sort of refine that and sharpen that over time. And in other cases, you might completely change your mind. Like right now, you think you want one thing, and next year you might have an idea that you want something very, very different. And I just want to say up front, that is okay. It's great that you have this time. It's great that you're thinking about college now, so you can make some good choices and be ready for college. Make that possibility happen. Make it possible. But it's not something you have to have all figured out today. We want to get some wheels turning for you, get you thinking about some things. Scott, you want to take it from there?
Sure. And I think even just to tie in, I think my daughter just graduated from the University of San Diego this past May, and all the way through high school, her dream was to be a nurse, and that's what she was looking at. That's what she desired. And then last semester of her senior year, she realized she wanted to be a teacher. So it completely transitioned. So she actually is doing a 5-year program at USD. She just graduated with her undergrad. She'll come back for one more year so she can complete her master's of education and her credentialing. So I think to Angie's point is that it is ever evolving. And so I think with that, it allows you to have options. And that's the biggest thing through this whole process of having options. And one of the ways that really ties into the options is sort of what you do in high school. You really are in a time where you have a great opportunity to really think about what these next 3 to 4 years are going to be for you, what it's going to look like in regards to the courses that you're going to take. Some of them are going to be mandatory because you're going to do your A through G. I'm not quite sure what the requirements are for in Colorado, but like the basic, your math, your English, your sciences, social sciences and such. But as you're going through, those are great opportunities to sort of figure out what you do like, which of those classes sort of stand out, because maybe that might be a major that goes through. And being able to really figure this out as you sort of think it through over these next 4 years. Sort of the questions that Angie's put up here and things. What classes do you enjoy and why? Do you thrive in interaction, discussion, debate in your high school classes? To be able to engage in all kinds of things. High school is a great opportunity to be able to experiment, to try different clubs and organizations on campus. You might be a part of a club that you realize you just absolutely love and enjoy and never thought you would, but just sort of taking that step of just trying something new, even if it seems a little out there or sort of out of the box for you. But even with classes and size-wise and stuff, and as you're going through, I think, how do you learn best? I think this is when Angie was talking about self-reflection, I think this is one of the areas to really self-reflect is how do you learn best? Some students are experiential. They need to try it out. They need to live it. Others, they're able to read and to absorb. And others are really sort of a hybrid. And as you're going through, figuring out how you learn best, because what that'll do is it'll really help you even with your study habits, being organized and setting up sort of your schedule for what your classes are going to look like and stuff. And I think another great thing is developing those relationships with teachers. Teachers are a great resource for you. They're great advocates. And like most of us, there's always those teachers that really see the best in you. And they're the ones that really help to call you higher. And it's always great to have these mentors in your life. And a lot of times they're going to be your teachers that are going to be great mentors to really give you that advice to be able to go through, to see what you're doing. And so, as you're going through thinking about this college process, I know it's a little early on, But I think these are some of the things that you can think about that'll really help you sort of figure out what that best fit college is down the road for you. But, you know, the classes you enjoy, how do you learn best? Are you hoping to do research? You know, when you think about colleges and stuff, there's some colleges that are going to give you that opportunity to do undergrad research opportunities. There are others that don't. And so just things to keep in mind as you're thinking about where you want to go 4 years from now, because it will go like that. You know, what are you passionate about? And, you know, in regards to your major, what are you thinking about? There are some schools that you don't have to declare, like University of San Diego, everybody comes in undeclared, and you have up to your 4th semester to declare your major, double major, major minor. And then there's other universities where you need to know what you want to do in the very beginning, because you'll be applying to that specific major. And so the more you can do this self-reflection, sort of figure this out in high school, at least the direction you're looking to go into, it can be very helpful. And then what kind of community do you want to be a part of? And I think this is the biggest thing. I think for y'all in high school, building community is essential. And so really, as you sort of are in class, whatever, figuring out the types of community, maybe it is clubs and organizations, maybe it's part of band, maybe it's athletics, but the same is going to be true in college. Whenever you build community, or the quicker you're able to establish community, the easier that transition is going to be. For 9th graders, y'all have been, you know, for the most part, online school for the last year and a half. Maybe your last semester, you're able to go back and you're back here. And that can be a big transition. Once again, building community is so essential, because it really helps this transition to go smoother. As well, in community, it's a great opportunity to be able to call each other higher and to push each other to be the best that we can be. And so I think it is some of the things to think about. These are some of the things that are, you know, going to be some key topics you are going to look about when you figure out what a best fit college is. But these are some things that you can implement in high school to understand that experience of what it's going to be like. And as you start to implement it now, it's going to be a lot more natural when you do make that transition to college, to be able to figure out. And Angie, I don't know if you want to throw some more insight on this. I've sort of been a little across the board on this one.
Now, this is great. I think these are some of the most important things for everybody to be thinking about. I want to just jump ahead to thinking about like the action steps that come out of what Scott's just talked about, right? So we listed some questions you might be asking yourself to figure out the right kind of college environment to look for. Here are a couple of action steps for you to take. The first one, gather input from the people who know you best, and from people who've done what it is that you hope to do. Talk with the people around you who've gone to college, find out what it was really like and how they found the right college to attend. Talk with parents or guardians about like some of the tough stuff. Talk about things like the cost of college. Know that you're going to learn a lot about scholarships and financial aid. And let me just say at the outset, scholarships and financial aid can meet the cost of attending college or offset that cost really substantially. But have those conversations with the people who you're going to partner with through this process, just to make sure that you move into the process with some really good advice from people who matter around you. This second point, know that it's really important to do some planning with your school counselor, because there are things like course choices that you will make over your high school years that are going to make college possible for you. So most colleges and universities expect that applicants will have taken college prep courses, and then some of the more competitive colleges will expect you to have taken some of the most challenging courses, whatever that looks like in your particular school. So you want to talk with your school counselor. It's not that you have to take every one of the toughest courses offered in your school, but you want to talk with your school counselor about making the right choices that are really appropriate for you. And then, you know, as you move through those courses, that's like part of the checklist of being ready to apply to college. But every one of those classes is a test of, potential interests that you might want to pursue in college. And, you know, some of those classes will involve lots of discussion and some will involve research. And so think about what Scott was just saying, right? When you decide that like research is really key for me, I want to be able to do that in my college career. Some of these high school course experiences are going to help inform that. So keep going back to those self-reflection questions to have your high school academic experiences inform what you look for in a college. But then also this third point, think about what you're doing outside of the classroom. I think what Scott said about community is so absolutely essential. And community has been a little bit strange for all of us over this pandemic, right? Like we've had to live in some virtual communities, but hopefully we're having more in-person time. I think all of this leads you to think about what you give to your community and what you hope to get back from your community. And living that in these high school years is an important part of the experience. It's also a way in which you will show colleges when you ultimately apply, and through your application, it's a way that you'll show colleges how you'll contribute to their campus community too. So the ways in which you commit yourself to activities and you become a leader in those activities, like all of that will be part of what you showcase when you become a college applicant. And it's part of what people like Scott and I will review to think about the kind of student that you might be on our campus and what you bring to our campus. Okay, let me go to the next one.
Well, and I think, can you go back there real quick, Andrew?
You bet.
So I think another thing to realize, since y'all are first year high school students, sophomore students, you know, I do want to let you know that really your grades really matter for you to do your best over the next 4 years. And I realize that life happens. So if you happen to have a class where you get a D or an F, realize that you can always repeat those classes. And if you repeat those classes as college, most colleges are going to always take the higher grade. So they're not going to take that into consideration. But it really is important. What you do now is going to either allow you to have more options or limit your options when you do get to that college processing point. So it is important to understand the value of your grades and what you're doing and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward and striving to be your best. If your best is being a B student, then be the best B student you can be. If it's, you know, an A student, being the best A student that you can be. And so this isn't about, you know, okay, you need to be a 4.0 student. And I'm not saying that. What I'm saying though is that you need to really understand the value of the courses that you're taking, that right now in high school, it could seem like it's inconsequential or it doesn't really matter, or even this is such a waste of time, or why do I have to take these classes? But they really are important and they do add up. And so often I'll talk with seniors who will look back and they just realize sort of one of their biggest regrets is, I wish I would have taken my classes more seriously when I was a freshman or a sophomore in high school. I think the other thing is we realize that everybody's life story is different and you have different demands on your life. For some of you all, you're going to be playing sports year round. Others, you might need to work part-time. For others, you might be required to take care of your siblings, or maybe you have a loved one at home that's sick that you've got to help provide care for. And so it may limit your opportunity to engage in those additional communities. But I think trying to figure those out is really, really important. This is sort of, think of it like these next 4 years are sort of your resume that you're preparing to be able to utilize when you're applying for college. And what you do now is so important. And being the best that you can be as a student, being organized. And this is where it is. It's connecting with that school counselor. I think a lot of times, you know, most students don't utilize the resources the counselors have to offer. But there are such great resources for you, or finding that mentor teacher to be able to discuss and to be able to meet with, and just getting that additional help to really help set you up for success for whatever it may be once you graduate, whether it's going into the workforce, whether it's going into the military, whether it's going to college, whether it's going to a trade school. But just really setting yourself for success, to be successful. And like I said, if a class comes and it's just challenging or you don't do well, getting that additional help, maybe going to meet with the teacher afterwards to really just set yourself up for success. But I just want to share this with you because you guys are sort of in that stage right now where it's school can be a little bit boring, can be like, oh my gosh, here we go through. So little rigmarole. I remember my daughter just being in ninth grade and 10th grade, and just her biggest comment was, this is so stupid. Why do I have to do it? I'm like, just stick with it. It's giving you the foundations, because really what you learn now is going to be so essential when you take your courses your junior and senior year to really help you be successful. So I really want to throw this out, that these years really do matter. At USD, we look from ninth grade all the way through the first semester of your senior year. There are a lot of other institutions that are going to look from your sophomore year all the way through your first semester of your senior year, or your sophomore and your junior year. So just keep that in mind as you're sort of going through the coursework and doing the things that you're doing as well.
All right. Do you want to talk about these next steps a bit,
Yeah.
Scott?
So I think this is something that I think a lot of students don't really think about, but over the course of these next 4 years, 3 years, there's a lot of opportunity for you to do the research, to be able to sort of identify what kind of schools are out there. There's thousands of colleges and universities. So there's something that's right for you based upon the majors, based upon location, based upon, do you want a big school that's got like big time college sports program? Do you want a smaller school that's a sort of a size that's more intimate? I think start doing your research online. As you and your families, if you have an opportunity to be able to go on vacation, and there's local colleges that are sort of in the area, visit those colleges while you're on vacation. If you go to California, you go out of state to see family and friends or loved ones or whatnot, see if there's any campuses nearby and take a tour of them. Walk on the campus. When you walk on a campus, I always tell students, you don't necessarily need to see, is that college specifically a good fit for you? But what about that college is a good fit? Is it the size? Is it the location? College fairs like you're doing today is such a great opportunity to be able to look at a variety of colleges in a very short period of time, to get additional information, to find out what it's like and such. Going through, and as you sort of going through, you start to identify, throughout the years, maybe your top choices in colleges and stuff, connecting with them, signing up, maybe it's just going online and filling an inquiry card on their website, or maybe it is actually having the opportunity to visit their campus, or if a college rep comes to your high school and to be able to go and be a part of that high school visit, or to be at like the college fair, like I've said here in a second. But I think just great opportunities to be able to connect, to find out more about colleges and universities. And then sort of it ties in there with at the very bottom, it's just that self-reflection of, as you're walking on a campus, or as you visit a college university rep at a college fair or whatever, that self-reflection of like, hey, what about that school is a good fit for me? Do I see myself being successful there? Is it the class size? Some schools, if it's a large school, you might be in a class of 600, 700, 800 students in one class. And that could be a little overwhelming for some, but for others, they love that autonomy. They love the fact that, this is sort of their thing, and they're not really desiring much need to contact that professor. But for others, they're like, that would be too overwhelming. And I want a smaller class size where I can collaborate with my peers. And if I want the opportunity to be able to connect with my professor. So, do they offer office hours, and are the courses taught by professors, or are they taught by graduate assistants? And so there's a lot to sort of go through this process of what you're thinking about. But right now, as you're sort of doing that research, this is just a great opportunity to expand your horizons. And there's so many different things: location, majors offered, size of the scope of the school, the athletics that are offered, the divisions that the schools are a part of. Are they D1, D2, D3? Class size, your majors, do you come in undeclared? Do you have to come in declared? There's so many things to think about. So if you start just thinking about that now as you're looking, it'll really help you once you get to that senior year to be able to sort of start pulling everything together and having that self-reflection, instead of trying to do all these steps your senior year. And then it just becomes overwhelming and daunting at that point in time.
All right. So next steps after those next steps, right? Now you've been thinking kind of big picture, and Like Scott said, you take advantage of when I'm in an area and I'm there for a soccer tournament. That's a chance to go and visit a local college. I'm on vacation. There's a university there and I'm going to go take a look. You find those things that you really like. And as all of that self-reflection and opportunities to explore individual colleges, as it starts to build toward, I think I've got a list of places that I'm interested in. When you're starting to find those good matches, that's when you want to spend time on those college and university websites to learn more. Make sure that you're on their mailing list. On most college websites, there will be a like request information link. Maybe you do that today when you're meeting with colleges in today's fair, but like at any point, if there's a college that you haven't gotten to talk to somebody at yet, but now you know you're interested, go to that website, get onto that mailing list so they'll send you information. Now you start to really dig in on those particular colleges. That's where you're going to be doing research into the majors, reading about the classes, the professors, the students in the program. I do want to throw out to you that national statistics show that about 3/4 of all college students change their minds about a major. So you want to think carefully about the major that you're targeting, because that may be a factor in admission, right? You might be applying to the College of Engineering at a particular university. And so you want to have enough direction that you can target where you want to go. But also I think it's worth thinking about the majors, plural, that you might be interested in, and finding the colleges and universities that make for a good match for you across the multiple things that you might think about pursuing. For sure, jump in there, take advantage of virtual visits, do virtual tours, go to virtual information sessions. And then if you're able and when you're able, go and visit and spend time on those campuses and do the in-person things that I think are really powerful. Not everybody's able to do that, but where you can, I think you get a real impression of a place when you walk around on your own, when you attend an open house program, something like that, to spend time there. And then if you have what's called a regional counselor, if there's someone at that school that specifically works, for instance, with students from Colorado, connect with that person if you can. It's a great place to go with your questions, but it's also a nice way to make yourself known outside of the application form that ultimately comes, which is a whole lot of fill in the blank on a bunch of digital forms. And it will end up, when you get to that part of the process, being potentially frustrating, because you're trying to take like everything that you are and fit it into these fields on a form. I think sometimes connecting with someone at the university, maybe it's, you know, the person who comes to visit your school, or the person you meet today at the fair, or at this fair again in the future, or going to that website to identify who your regional counselor is. That can be really great. And it will just make the whole process feel a lot less like anonymous and a lot more like I know somebody. So I do recommend that. All right.
And just a time check real quick. We have I would say about 5 more minutes, Angie. Does that sound good? Okay, great.
Yeah, and I think we're there, Scott. We wanted to just reassure at the end of all this, all the advice, all the tips that we're giving you about moving through this process. Like, you got to enjoy high school. We don't mean for you to invest so much time and energy in thinking about the next step that you don't stop to enjoy the step that you're on. So hopefully these high school years will be a time where you really like develop interests and find your passions and really invest in the things that you care about. We want you to take care of you through this whole process. And Scott, I'll jump ahead to our contact info so folks can jot that down. But do you want to offer any closing thoughts before we open it up to questions?
I think, you know, Angie really made a key point with the last comment of just enjoy your time in high school. These 4 years are going to go by really, really quick. And so it is that time to be able to be thinking ahead, but as well, it's about living in the present. And y'all have gone through a lot, being online for the last year and a half. For some of you, it's been quite a while from being in person, and that can be a little daunting. It can be a little challenging of just re-socializing and sort of getting back in the groove there, and realize that there's resources that are available to you to help that transition to be as smooth as possible. Going from online learning to in-person learning could also be a little bit more challenging. And so just make sure is that last thing is just take care of yourself. Get the help that you need with the counselors and your teachers to utilize them. I think even as you start to move along or progress down the road, when you start a little more, it's probably your junior year, you're really going to be starting to think a lot more specific about the colleges. That's a great time to start reaching out to the college counselors. You can reach out to them now, but it's probably a little bit early for that, especially they may not be your admission counselor a couple of years from now. So being able to start making that connection and stuff. But, I think at this point in time, if there's any questions that y'all have, if you feel free to either throw it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and be able to just ask a question. We're not able to see everyone, so you just go ahead and unmute yourself and just start talking and ask the questions, or throw it in the chat. But this would be a great opportunity for us to maybe answer any questions that you all might have at this point in time.
I'm going to stop my share so we can see more of you. And we can pop our contact info into the chat as well. But yeah, let's see. What questions do you all have?
And I can certainly start it off. Maybe this will help some of the students maybe come up with some questions. So that was really great, Scott and Angie. Thank you so much. And as a 9-10 counselor, so much of what you've spoken about today are the questions that I get asked from my own students. And so one of the questions I get asked, and maybe you can expand upon, is I really enjoyed your kind of touching on the part about being part of a community. And so oftentimes I get questions from specifically my 9th graders. What does that mean, Ms. Zinser? What does it mean being part of a community? And what if I don't know what community I want to be part of? Where do you think they could start to kind of figure out what type of community they'd like to be part of?
And if I can tack on to that, something that Scott said about maybe part of it is your role in your family, caregiving for family members, right? Part of your community might be your family, your extended family, your neighborhood. It could be the town that you live in. It could be a club that you join and you realize that students who are helping with a literacy organization, wow, that's the thing that I really care about. That becomes my community. You might have some personal identification that kind of ties to your community. It has to do with your ethnicity. It has to do with your gender identification. There are a lot of different ways I think that the places where we find meaning in our lives and the others that we connect with around those meaningful points, I think they all become communities.
And I think there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, obviously, most schools have clubs on campus anyways. So being able to do that, or maybe there's something you're passionate about that your school doesn't offer that club, then connecting with a teacher who might be passionate about that to be able to start a club. That's a great opportunity for students to be able to engage. As well, there's traditional Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, working part-time, as well as just maybe you're with your faith center, your local faith center. There could be a faith club that's a part of that. Maybe it's music, maybe it's theater arts, maybe it's athletics. But there's a lot of opportunities, and the reality is that students tend to thrive a little bit better if they have a couple of communities to be able to be a part of. And maybe it's just community service. Maybe it's upon your heart to go and just, as things open up. But in the past, I've known students that have gone to retirement centers to be able to just sort of encourage the residents there. Obviously, with COVID, there may be some restrictions there. For others, they felt really just a need to be able to want to help serve the homeless in their community. So there's so many ways to be able to offer, but it's about sort of thinking outside of yourself of just you have these strengths and you have these talents and you have these passions, and figuring out how do you use those to really better the world in which we live in, to be able to make a difference in the lives of other people. And I think that's where community starts, is that opportunity that this isn't about me, but it's about others, and giving to others and serving others in whatever realm that looks like. So for me, that's one of the things I always tell students about, is just, wherever you are, those type of communities can really be helpful for our students to feel connected, to have those safe spaces to be able to be open about what's going on with their life. But I find that those students thrive, like at the University of San Diego, the students who thrive the best are those students that are a part of those smaller communities, because what it does is it allows you to make you feel like this is home. This is where I belong, and my life is making a difference and stuff. So I think those are the biggest things that you look, but the options are unlimited. What do you want to do? And if it's not there, then start something, because you've got the ability and you've got the opportunity to be able to make that happen.
And if I can jump on something that Scott said earlier, remember he was talking about like the resume that you build, and it's about what you're doing all the way through high school. Remember, all of these things that we're talking about are the kinds of things that go onto that resume, not just clubs, like named clubs in the high school, or like you are an officer of. That's not the only way to define leadership. Those organizations that happen within your school, that's great. But if you find the thing that you really care about outside of your school and elsewhere in your community, you're going to list that too, because it's part of telling us what you care about and give your time to.
That was great. Thank you. All right, participants, any of you have any questions at all? Anything that is sparking your interest? Either you can place it in the chat, or you can unmute and ask us directly. Lots of great information.
Rachel, did you put up a hand?
Yes. Hi. So I am interested in like getting a degree in drama and theater. So then I can go on to be a voice actor. But my school doesn't offer many options. Currently, there's no teacher for the drama class. And so I would like to ask what recommendations you have to get that on my high school resume.
I think with that is that I would look and see, is there anything in your community? Is there a local theater group that you could be a part of? Are there, look and see what's outside of your school and in your community to be able to do it. Because if you're part of a community theater club, that's still going to go on your resume. But for you, it's giving you something that you're passionate about, something you enjoy. That's sort of who you are. So I think being able to find something like that as well. Sometimes when you're in high school and stuff, some schools will allow you to maybe take concurrent or dual enrollment. So maybe there's an opportunity at one of the local community colleges to be able to take theater courses or something like that, to just give you that experience. But I think it's going to be, you'll have to be a little bit more creative in your thought process. But is there an opportunity to maybe start a theater club on your campus? Is there enough interest? Is there a teacher that would be like, yeah, let's figure this out to be able to see? I mean, there are options there. And, only by trying will you find out if it's going to work out or something like that. But I think it's just being a little more creative to be able to figure out how you can do it, because it seems like that's something that is important to who you are and something that you connect with. So finding those opportunities would be very important for you to be able to find those activities to engage in and be a part of.
The only thing that I would add is there are lots of things that students are interested in pursuing in college that they haven't gotten to do yet before they get to college. So you don't have to have a resume loaded with the things that you have already accomplished related to the interest. I think Scott's recommendations are great, because this is something that you love and want to do, right? So you want to look for opportunities to be engaged. But don't feel if there are things you're not able to do. For instance, the theater program is not happening currently at your school, right? That's not something outside of your control. Do what you're able to do, continue to learn about the field that you're interested in, and know that, like, we have a lot of students arriving on our campuses who are ready to get started with this thing they're really interested in. And maybe we're not able to do a ton of it before, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think even to Angie's point, like at USD, if you're admitted to USD, you're guaranteed any major. Everybody comes in undeclared. So even if you declare your theater and arts major, there's no audition component or anything. You're automatically guaranteed. So there are universities that it'll give you that opportunity once you do get there, and that's one of the things you may be looking at what a best fit is for you over the next couple of years as well.
Good luck, Rachel. Anyone else have questions for us?
I have another question, if you don't mind. I thought it was so interesting to me, and I had never thought about my students when they're traveling, throughout the summer to actually visit campuses. And what would be the best way? So let's say it's, come May, like in my high school, we end the end of May, and they're traveling to Wyoming and they want to check out some colleges. What would be the best way to approach that from a freshman or sophomore level student?
I'll throw out a tip, and that is that at this stage, 9th, 10th grade, maybe the best way to think about it is what types of places might be a good match for me. And so if you're thinking about your travels and you look up what colleges and universities are in those locations, it might be that over the course of the summer, I want to try to see like a small school and a medium-sized school and a big university, just because at this stage, like mostly what I need is to get the feel for a type of place. And for sure, you might end up falling in love with one of those places and you might remain interested in that same place throughout. But, if CU Boulder is like the chance to see a wonderful big flagship state university, great, experience that. And then who knows what other big universities you might decide you want to look at after that. The other thing to think about, size is a big factor for people, and like urban versus small town versus rural can be a real deciding factor to sort of like, you want to go to one of those sites like Big Future with a couple of criteria in mind. So if your early visiting lets you kind of see an urban campus and then see a more rural campus, that could help give you some of the parameters that you need to then run those searches like Big Future to get a list of schools that match the type that you found you like.
Yeah.
Great.
I think to Andy's point is you have so many great universities in the Colorado area that are so close, from DU, which is a smaller one, to Boulder. I mean, so there's a lot of great opportunities for you even to look at those different size ones where you don't necessarily have to travel out of state. And it might be just driving through the campus. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to do a campus visit, but if you do a campus visit, I guess this is one thing that's really going to be helpful for y'all, is that we tie everything to email addresses. So whatever email address you're going to utilize now, maybe you create one that's specific for your college search or whatever. But what will happen is that when you apply to the university, we're going to see if there's any emails that match that one. Like if you went to a high school visit, if you went to a college visit, if you went to a college fair. So if you use different emails or you change it, then they won't see that sort of demonstrated interest. So that may be something you may want to think about now, is just having a dedicated email address or whatever email address you have now. Make sure it's a professional type email address that you're going to be utilizing, but just to stay with that over the course of the next 4 years and through your application process as well.
I want to just pick up on one thing that Scott talked about. He used a term that we use a lot in higher education, demonstrated interest, right? So in the beginning, 9th, 10th grade, you're just trying to kind of figure out what's out there. But for sure, as you start to zero in on particular schools and you're interested in these places, at the prospect that you might one day become an applicant for that school, and they're going to be looking back and saying, well, like, how interested are you? Because if you and several other applicants are pretty comparable academically, there's competition for admission. Who do I choose to admit? I might go back and say, well, here's somebody who's been in touch. I see they visited campus. I see that they met somebody during a high school visit. And what Scott said, right? It's that email address that we associate each of these activities with. And that's what then tells us, like, wow, you've demonstrated interest over time. That can be an important thing down the road. Don't worry too much about it now, but like, as you start to feel like, no, that particular school, not just that type, but that particular school interests me, pay attention to like staying in touch with them, those contacts with the regional counselor, you know, logging on to do that virtual tour, visiting in person. All of those are opportunities to show that school that you're interested, and then you become the one they want to pick when everything else looks kind of comparable. All right. We have
That was
like
great.
a minute left.
We have a
Right?
minute left.
Yeah. Does anyone have one last question that they know everybody needs the answer to? What is that one last, like, fantastic question? No pressure. All right, too much pressure. Sorry. You've gotten a lot of tips here. Google the questions you have about your college search too, because you'll get a lot of tips from a lot of different sources out there. And just rewinding to things we covered, be sure to connect with your school counselor. Use the resources around you. You know, you're thinking you love bio, talk to your bio teacher. Think about, you know, the professions that you might pursue linked to that academic interest. Where did they go to school? How did they pursue the interest, right? You have a lot of resources around you. And I know the process can seem a bit overwhelming because there are so many options, and that's a good thing. It's a good problem to have, so many options. So for sure, use the resources around you. All right.
Well, if there are no other questions, last call, I really would like to thank Scott and Angie. That was a very informative session, and appreciate your time. And if that is it, that will be all, and we can end and close. And that was great. Thank you, Dusty.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Great.
Thank you,
That was-
Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. That was very, very informative. I am going to definitely take a lot of your tips back to my school site. So that was really great. I appreciate it.
So glad.
All
Yes,
right.
that was fun. Thank you.
Wonderful working with you, Angie. I guess I'll see you later on this afternoon too, right?
See you this afternoon. Good luck
All
with
right.
the fair.
Bye.